fuck?
You know what? It's all the bitches love me. All I need is a beat that's super bumpin'. And for you, back it up and drop it. Yeah. Put your arms out front, lean side to side. They gon' be on you when they see you hit that Dougie ride. Ain't nobody fucking with my bro from Morningside. He go by Bubba and he hit that death for 30. Okay, I ain't from Dallas, but I D-town boogie. I show my moves on to everybody trying to do me. I lead the functions and all the ladies trying to screw me. Now you just do you, and I'ma do it all day. Niggas love to hate, so they try to shoot me. Bitches be stuck to me, I think they try to glue me. I make the party shine bright when it started gloomy. This beat was bubble gum, so I had to chew it.
Taste me how to duck, taste me how to duck, taste me how to duck, taste me how to duck.
Hey guys, it's Ninja. I'm back with my Magicka Dragonknight build, and this time it isn't 50 minutes long because I realized that was a fucking stupid idea. If there's any questions you guys have about in-depth, detailed magdk stuff, go check it out. I mean, it's got all the info you need. It's just 50 minutes is too long. That was my bad. I kind of fucked up on that one. So here's one that's actually good. Shorter, it's to the point, and this build itself is amazing. It's all about rounding up as much burst and AoE potential as you can and just smacking it on people while being a tanky son of a bitch. And this build also features a mythic item that nobody's really built around yet, and I really love it. So stay tuned to see what, we kind of came up with here. And it's just a perfect build. It's just perfect magdk. I don't think I can get any better than this personally. This build is intended for battlegrounds, Imperial City, Xing or solo, outnumbered PvP basically. It doesn't work in Cyrodiil. I have a different build for Cyrodiil. If you guys are interested, let me know. It's got 20k pen on the tooltip sheet, without a breach. It's kind of nuts. But anyways, this is the build that I'm going with here. So if you guys enjoyed, remember to sub, all that shit. Anyways, let's get into it. Alright, so let's get into the build. So on the stat sheet, we got about 32k max magic. I think that's pretty good. 27k health on the front, and it's more like 28 on the back. Yeah. About 19.3k stamina, which is pretty useful since we're going to be blocking a lot. 1200 Magicka recovery, that isn't really important. I mean, that amount of recovery is about what you should aim for. Any more, any less just kind of doesn't feel right. 1200 health recovery, which goes up when we use coagulating. We're sitting at 3k spell damage just sitting here, but if I buff up like that, we're at about 4,400, which is pretty good. I mean, it's not anything to write home about, but it's quite a lot of spell damage. With that amount of spell damage, we're gonna have a whole lot of healing. 25.8% spell crit. I would like it to be higher, but it is what it is. About 4k pen, and this goes up because we're using puncture. And our resistances on the back are 30k spell and 24k physical. I think this is a really, really nice, sweet spot to be at. And our crit resist is at 1700. A little bit low, but not super, super important in my opinion. Since we have a lot of spell damage and resistances, we can heal up really quickly. We're not gonna get one shot. So for the gear I'm running Daedric Trickery on the back, and this is probably one of the best sets you can run on a Dragonknight in general, because Dragonknight doesn't have a lot of these inherent major buffs. If you look at a Warden, they get every single one of those just for existing, except Vitality, but tomato, that's nitpicking. Dragonknight doesn't have any of these. So it feels like we need to run this set to kind of bring us up to everybody else's playfield. And not only that, these buffs are incredible. So when you deal damage, you get one of 5 major random buffs. For 21 seconds, you can have 3 at a time. Technically, you're usually gonna have 2. And you can get Major Expedition, Major Protection, Major Mending, Major Heroism, and Major Vitality. And these are some of the strongest buffs in the game, and they just make Dragonknight that much better. So Heroism is gonna make us have so much ulti gen that we're gonna be popping off with ults, and on a Dragonknight, ulting means sustain. So right there, that's an incredible interaction. Major Protection, just reduce your damage taken by 10%, come on. Major Expedition is very useful. If we're in a pickle and it goes off, then we can just go speedy and get the fuck out of there. Major Mending and Major Vitality, when these two proc together, we can get about a 30% healing buff. And then combined with our Dragonknight passives and our high spell damage, like, we can out heal basically anything. As long as it's not 8 people, you know, you're probably going to be fine with that amount of healing buffs. And so this is active on the front, so the way you want to proc this, or it's active on the back, sorry. So the way you want to proc this is you want to hit the enemy with a dot, and then switch to your back. And you see it already procced, and I got major protection, I think that is. So that's how you want to use this set. I just got some poisons, always good. Burning Spellweave Inferno Staff, charged with a Flame Enchant. I think the Flame Enchant is really important on this, so every time you light attack, you're getting a Flame status, even if it's not with Burning Spellweave. And every time you get that Flame status, you're going to get Magicka back, so that means more sustain for us. And since it's a Flame damage, we're going to proc that status, it's more damage as well. And what Burning Spellweave does, it gives you a line of magic, line of spell damage, line of crit. When you deal damage with a Flame ability, it's a little bit weird how this is worded, you get 473 spell damage. So this set is on par with New Moon's, but since we're a Dragonknight, I think it's better because we actually get Magicka back and have around the same damage with none of the drawbacks. This is probably one of the best sets you can run on a Dragonknight as well. It's pretty staple. Like, if you haven't heard of Burning Spellweave on a Dragonknight, I don't know where you've been living. Falcon Scoria. So this is a monster set I chose because it's my favorite monster set to run on a Dragonknight period. Dragonknight doesn't have a lot of inherent burst in it. You can get burst through, like, you know, deep breath and whipping and leaping and all that stuff. But this is just like burst damage for free. It's not super cheesy, it doesn't do like an insane amount, but it really helps you push that extra last little bit that you need. So the mythic I chose for this, I didn't go with, you know, Malakast Band of Brutality, though that is a really good option. I actually like bloodlords. I just spent like 30 runs in Crypt 1 trying to get this fucking thing, so I can tell you it's worth it. So what this does is when you bash an enemy, you can put a curse on them, and every time you block an attack from them, you get 1500 Magicka back every 1 second. This is insane. Dragonknights have awful sustain. They always have troubles with sustain, and in the right scenario, this item will completely fix your sustain problems. Nice trick to do. Let's say this is your opponent right here, and you bash them, and then you proc a spell wall. Every time the spell wall blocks something, you're gonna get Magicka back from this person. So you have to be careful who you bash, and bashing costs a lot of stam. There's not much you can really do to like decrease the cost, so you have to be really careful. But if there's like a group of 4 running at you and there's this one guy that just goes ahead of everybody and just starts shitting on you, you can just bash him, spell wall, and then just fuck them up and get infinite magic. It's also really nice when somebody's smacking on you and whittling you down, you just need a second to hold block and like heal yourself up. What that curse will do is every time you basically use coagulating, you get enough magic to use it again. So if they're hitting you constantly, you can have incredible healing and be able to sustain pressure. In terms of the traits, Impen and Sturdy is what you're going to go for. I have a couple still divines. I need to fix those. I'm poor. And Infused Jewelry, all Burning Spellweave. You don't want to craft Daedric Trickery because it's just a bitch and there's no reason to. And that's basically it for the gear. Going back to the character sheet real quick, forgot to mention this, I'm using Sugar Skulls, and I'm using the Atronach Stone. And my race is actually a Breton. Probably one of the best races you can run on a Dragonknight. I used to run an Argonian. I ran it through all types of content, PvE, DPS, you know, Trials tank, you know, PvP, X-Clips, you know, like, you can do whatever you want on a Dragonknight with any race, but a Breton is the best way to go. After years of playing an Argonian, I switched to Breton, noticed the difference within 5 minutes. Like, it's insane how much better Breton is than, you know, a class like Argonian. But Argonian looks better. Because, I mean, you're a dragon, you got wings, you got a tail, you look cool as fuck. Alright, moving on to the skills. So, I put Cauterize on the front because we're not running Magicka anymore. We need some spell crit somewhere, and Inner Light is kind of a do-nothing skill. And since we already get the buff from something else, it kind of feels dumb to have like 2 separate skills that give the same buff on different bars kind of thing. I just don't like it. So I put Cauterize on the front, and it's a really big heal over time. When we get buffed up and doing stuff, it can hit for like 12k, like even there 10.5, and I don't even have spell buffs on. Cauterize can heal for a lot. It's very, very cheap. And on the front, if you just need a little bit of top off, like you don't want to swap to your back and proc coagulating and do all that shit, this is just a nice little heal, and it can keep you on your front without switching back. So the second skill is Fossilize. This is probably the best stun in the game. If you're a Dragonknight, you're not running Fossilize, something wrong with you. What it essentially does is it stuns them, and then immobilizes them after. And so the synergy with Flame Lash, which is the whip I don't run the other whip. So what this Flame Lash essentially does is every time an enemy is stunned or immobilized, you can set them off balance and get that power whip. So when you use Fossilized, you stun them, whip, they're off balance, power whip. If they're immobilized, you whip, off balance, power whip. And each time you do this, you're going to get a huge heal, and I'm not sure if it matters. But if you have a shock glyph on your weapon and you set them off balance with minor vulnerability, or you have like a lightning destruction staff, you can set everybody in the area off balance. Each person can now be targeted with a power whip. And every time you power whip, you're going to get a 16k heal over 2 seconds. So setting them off balance, applying minor vulnerability, whatever, you can get this up very often and make it hit very hard. If you want to go spicy whip, you could. It's just, sometimes it just doesn't work out. I don't think using Flames of Oblivion and the spicy whip really works for DKs. I think it's more of just a meme. It doesn't really pan out as well as you'd think sometimes. This is a much safer approach. And in my opinion, I think it's a lot better. Especially when you're 1vxing or you're outnumbered, that huge heal that you can get off of Flame Lash comes in clutch so often. Moving on to the flex skill. My flex skill is Engulfing Flames. So this skill is a real piece of shit sometimes. It doesn't fucking work. It's the clunkiest thing I've ever experienced. But if you get it to hit, if you get it to actually work the way you want it to, they can take 10% more damage from everything you do. Because all you're going to do is flame damage. So a 10% boost is a lot. But again, it's a fucking clunky piece of shit, and it doesn't work. So if you wanted to, you could swap this out with Burning Embers. Talons I ran with for a while. I've been running it like the past few years basically and never taken it off. And lately I've been wanting to take it off because if you're against a Sork or something and they streak away, these Talons are useless. It's 4k Magicka. And when looking at, Engulfing Flames, a 10% DPS increase with basically the same damage on the ability and cheaper, it's kind of a no-brainer. But Talons has a lot of uses too. It immobilizes them, so every person that gets immobilized can get hit with a power whip, which is really good. Talons is very good. Don't sleep on it. Try it out. Another thing you can run, I know I mentioned this before, but you could run Wall of Elements. What this will basically do, you'll put down a giant AoE, and everybody inside it takes flame damage. And when you have a charged staff, everybody has a higher chance of getting burn status effect. So if you have 4 people inside your Wall of Elements, you can get burning status on all of them, and that's 2k magic right there. This skill right here can fix your sustain if you're having issues, but it is really hard to use. Costs a lot of magicka, so you have to be careful with it. You can't just throw it out willy-nilly and expect it to work. You have to actually aim it, make it work. Could run weakness to elements, but I'm already running puncture on the back, so meh. And I think Caltrops is actually a really good skill. When you're locking a whole group down with Talons, and then maybe you want to throw out a Caltrops to slow them down, apply a major breach on them and slow them. It's actually very good, but you have to be in the right situation. It costs stamina. It's not the most ideal skill. Just another option. My last recommendation is Magicka Detonation. So or also known as proxy debt. So basically you can put this on yourself, suck in with a deep breath, find a victim, dragon leap on them, and then your deep breath, your proxy debt, your Valken Scoria, your leap, your heavy, and a whip will hit them all at the same time, and you will just fuck them up. But it's a very niche purpose. It's mostly just meant for like having fun and bombing squads if you want to. Not really intended for solo 1vx or just open world or whatever, but that is an option. Moving on to the last skill that I just mentioned, deep breath. So basically what this does is it sucks in everything around you. Anybody that is casting something, you know, with the red thing above them, like you can bash them or whatever. If they're doing that and they get hit by this, they get set off balance and stunned. So the important part is they get set off balance, which again goes into your power whip. Everything a DK does synergizes very well with itself. And then after that, you exhale fire, and you do about half as much damage, I would say, as beetles from a warden skill tree. But it's all around you, and you can actually time this burst pretty well. So if I do this into this, and then whip and deep breath, see? You can actually time it very easily, and once you get the timing down, it becomes second nature. Last skill on here is Ferocious Leap. Obviously, you're going to want to use this like an execute. Basically, when they're low, like below 50%, you know, you do your usual combo. You got your engulfing, your deep breath, your whip. You get them low, you stun them. If they're sitting at about 30% health, don't be afraid to leap on them to secure the kill. What this skill does is it actually tracks people. People can't dodge it. You have to just sit there and block it. So if they're smart, they're gonna block it. In that case, it might not work out the way you want it to. They might live, but with the amount of pressure you have on this build, like they're gonna die. And if they are blocking and their stun timer is up, you can just fossilize them again. They can't block, they're fucked. And after leaping in, let's say you need a second to breathe or somebody's running away, you can leap on somebody and get a huge, huge damage shield. This thing is massive. So it just lets you stay in the fight, and every time we all Battle Roar. Battle Roar is gonna kick in, give us a shit ton of resources. It's just why you play DK, you're gonna dunk. Moving on to the back. First skill I got is Degen. This will give us major sorcery, apply a huge dot on somebody, and combined with the charge status staff, it's actually very useful. So you can see this increased chance to apply status effects. Well, there's a new one that was introduced in the game that comes from raw magic damage. So your volatile armor and your degeneration can actually proc this new status effect. And what it does is it gives minor magicka steal and a dot that is similar damage to burning. So now we have two burning statuses essentially, and this gives us resources every time we hit somebody. It's the same buff as Illy Drain. Volatile armor, it's your armor buff. You're gonna, when you release it, you're gonna do magic damage over time to everybody in the area. This is gonna be your primary way of applying that new status effect. I don't know what it's called, I just see it happen all the time. I think it's overcharged or something. And then while active, every time you get meleeed, you're gonna do magic damage back to them. So more raw magic damage to proc that new status effect. Coagulating blood. This will heal you based on how much spell damage you have and how low your health is. You also get major fortitude, increasing your health recovery. So if we look at with the armor and that, and we look at our health recovery, all of a sudden we're at 1500. Which is not insane, but it is helpful. You have to be careful when using this skill because it costs a lot, and but if you have bloodlords up and somebody's continuously hitting you, you don't have to be too shy with it, but be reasonable, okay? Your stamina's only gonna last so long. It's kind of like having Dark Deal on a Dragonknight. I mean, it's kind of cool. Dragonfire scale. This is my other flex spot, but personally, I never leave home without it. It's just so good. So what it does is it makes you take half damage from all projectiles. We're talking, you know, Nightblades with their bow procs. We're talking snipe spam, okay? We're talking crystal frags. We're talking DK, you know, random shit. We're talking about a lot of things in the game here. And this will help you take half damage from all of that and reflect 5k flame damage every half second back to them. If somebody's continuously hitting you with range damage and you have this up, this can have one of the highest damaging tooltips like in the game period. You're gonna be doing 10k a second to them. That's fucking stupid. So, and it also tracks and you look cool. Nothing else to say. Pierce armor. This is when you want to take down somebody that's a little bit tankier than the rest and they're pissing you off. So basically you hit them and they get 9k resistances less. That's basically it. This is a lot of value on one skill. And it's a skill that costs stamina, so we don't have to use our Magicka to use it, which is really nice. It's just an amazing skill. Spell wall. So this is interesting. I actually used to run Magma Shell, and I still like Magma Shell, but with Bloodlord's Embrace as like the primary mythic, Spell Wall is actually really good. So I talked about it earlier, you basically bash somebody, and when Spell Wall is active, it'll reflect all projectiles cast at you. So if you have this and Dragonfire up at the same time, not only are you reflecting them, but you're also launching a Flame Orb back. So anybody ranged is just fucked. And then every time you get hit, you're gonna get Magicka back because of Bloodlord's Embrace. So together with that mythic, this is probably one of the best ultimates you can run. Next to Magma Shell. And what's so deadly about Magma Shell is the fact that it's so low key. You can turn a corner, pop it, walk back around. Usually the enemies won't even notice what happened. And then they'll start getting into you, they'll start overextending, and then realizing, wait a minute, I'm not doing any fucking damage. What's going on? And then you just turn around and blow them up. So Magma Shell is super, super sneaky. And I love it. But Spell Wall is better with Bloodlord's Embrace. If you went Malakath, I would rather run Magma Shell. That's just me. Alright, so now I'm going to get into the champion points. Keep in mind, I'm doing this with 1,094 champion points. Your champion points are going to be different than mine. Obviously, you're not going to have the same amount. So when you're doing this, go for the slottable stars first, and then work your way towards passives. So, blue tree. I've got Focus Mending maxed out for an extra 10% single target healing. That's basically all we do. Your Cauterize and your Coagulating are both single target, so this is going to increase those by a lot. Second star, I maxed out Duelist's Rebuff. What it does, reduce damage taken by single target attacks by 2% per stage, up to 10%. This is really important thing to have in PvP in general. It's just going to help you mitigate a lot of damage. The other slottable stars, I maxed out Thaumaturge as well. Since we're applying so many different damage over time effects and we have a charge staff, having a big boost to this really, really helps out your damage. Don't sleep on this skill. I slept on it for a while and then put it on and holy shit, it made a difference. And Biting Aura, this helps with our AoE burst. This build is all about gathering up as much AoE burst as we can and then just absolutely fucking someone. So an extra 10% to all that is really good. And we're using a flame staff. If you had a lightning staff, it would put an extra 8% towards this, which would be good. But I don't want all my eggs in one basket. A flame staff will give you basically this, up to 8%, an extra 8% single target damage, so we have a good amount of damage in both areas. In terms of passives, you're going to want to get everything you can in this purple tree here. So 1400 pen, 60% extra status effect. You're going to want to max this since we're on a Dragonknight, sustaining through combustion. This is a really nice thing that they put in the new CP, so do not sleep on it. And War Mage, obviously, just 100 weapon damage, spell damage, why not? Other points are 10 in here, 15 in here. I think I put 30 in here, yeah, 3% extra healing taken. And that was it, basically. On to the red tree. So I think the red tree stars are actually a little bit more important than the other trees. So looking at it, first off we got Slippery, and this is probably one of the best ones. It breaks you free automatically for no cost. That's the big thing here, no cost. This will save you about 4.5k stam every 21 seconds, and when you're a sturdy build, you're constantly blocking, you're roll dodging, you're on a Magicka class, so you don't have a lot of stamina to begin with anyways. This is a huge saver. Rejuvenation to always give us some recovery. We always need recovery. Juggernaut. This has really good synergy with heavy armor. While under the effects of crowd control immunity, you take 2% less damage per stage, so 10%, so after you get stunned, you're immune to crowd control, you take 10% less damage. And when we go into heavy armor reduces your damage taken while immune to crowd control by 1% per piece. We're wearing 5, so we have a 15% total damage reduction after a stun. And then combine it with Daedric Trickery with the major protection, we get to 25. Last star, and probably the most important star in the red tree. Everybody sleeps on this. Again, I don't know why. Survival Instincts. Dragonknight's abilities cost an insane amount. And while you're inflicted with a status effect, you get a 25% cost reduction to your core combat skills. That's insane! That like if you're always going to be affected by some kind of status effect, and taking your coagulating blood down from a 4k cost to a 3k cost, combined with Breton, combined with bloodlords giving us sustain, this will help us basically have free magic abilities. This is an insane perk that you cannot sleep on if you're going to play a Dragonknight at all. The green tree doesn't really matter, but I'll just show you quick anyways. You know, some here, yada yada yada, who the fuck cares? It's a fucking green tree, doesn't fucking do anything. Moving on. So that's basically it, that's the build. If you guys enjoyed it, liked it, found it helpful, you know, consider supporting me. Other than that, you know, I got free time now so I can actually start streaming, so, you know, if you want to stick around for that, that'd be great. Anyways, that's about it. If you guys want to see more gameplay or whatever, check out my other stuff, and see ya.